So I wanted to talk a little bit about why fawning is a trauma response. So we're starting to understand that it's not just like people pleasing or codependency, that these labels have sort of missed the mark. In some ways they're pointing to fawning, but in a lot of ways they're also really misrepresenting it. So why is it a trauma response, right? Like what's happening neurobiologically? And I think the take home here is to start to understand that fawning is a hybrid trauma response. And I actually think this is why it's been missed as a trauma response for so long, because there's the part that's sort of leaning in that we can see, the part that's appeasing or is hypervigilant or is sensing the mood or kind of shape-shifting into whatever the environment or relationship is calling for, that we need to keep us relationally safe. But then there's the internal, the unseen, the hidden disconnect, the dissociation, the freeze, the abandonment of self that's going on internally in order to make the appeasing possible. So fawning is really this collision between our attachment needs and our threat response, right? Like we need our caregivers, we need our paycheck, we need to survive the environment and relationships that we are in, and we are not safe. Genuinely, we're under threat. We're not respected or seen. We're abused. So it's the combination of these things that created what I believe is this genius adaptation, okay? It's like truly threading this teeny tiny needle of safety that the body has designed, which we now refer to as fawning. So Dr. Janina Fisher, she's an expert in the neurobiology of trauma. She recently shared with me that fawning is this hybrid between the attach or cry for help response and submit, which makes sense given everything I just shared. And from a polyvagal perspective, I've read that fawning is sort of a hybrid between the fight-flight response, or one foot on the gas pedal, right? It's what gives you that momentum and agency, and one foot on freeze. That's the part that disconnects, that dissociates. So both of these to me really embody my lifetime lived experience of fawning. And I think also speaks to why so many of us have been sitting on a million therapist couches all over town and reading all the self-help books and going to all the groups, and something wasn't being attended to. In part because we were only attending to the part that we could see, right? Like I could see these dysfunctional relationships. I could see some of my patterns that certainly didn't serve me, and I wanted to change them. But what was never seen was the necessity, was the unconscious instincts that were driving the ship no matter how much my opinions wanted me to do it differently, and the total disconnect from self. So much so that oftentimes we don't even know that we're doing these things. It's complicated, right? It's much more complicated than we've ever given it credit. So my hope really in bringing more awareness to what fawning is and what it looks like and how we experience it internally and externally is to reduce the shame that so many of us have carried for so long, right? To bring more education to what it actually is so that we could use the right tools for the job, which is not to shame us further into saying, well, whatever, you're dishonest or manipulating or controlling or all of the horrible things that we've been called. The truth is that we're genius human beings who've adapted to the environments that we're living in. Now, do we want to stay stuck here living in survival mode? No, right? So both things are true. We can still be accountable. We can still take personal responsibility, but for the truth of the thing, for the depth and the breadth of the thing, not just this tip of the iceberg as though we'll just cut that piece off and boom, you're done, right? A lot of people like to look at it in that very short-sighted way. It's not helpful. So I hope that this is.